Hey guys, so there's some thoughts that I thought would be useful to put into video form, and because it's so beautiful out, I just thought compare a walk through the beautiful wooded snowy nature, which has a particular vibe that I'm really happy to be in despite the cold. But I can also talk about some philosophical things that I think are important, are important to me at least, and so maybe they will be important to you. And I think the easiest place to start is with a conversation that I had with a friend yesterday, and he was commenting on the similarities he sees with what I'm trying to do to somebody who's trying to climb K2, the hardest mountain in the world to climb. And this is a great metaphor for me because one of my hobbies is watching climbers on YouTube, so I already knew about that. And and so that spurred me to talk about one of the core philosophies that I've come to find and really hold on to. And it's not for everyone, but if you're feeling like religion isn't your thing, I think this is kind of like the way to go, which is optimistic nihilism. So this is the sort of approach to the intrinsic meaninglessness of life, but seeing that as an opportunity, because it's not like, oh, there's so much terribleness in the world, it's not even worth living. It's more like the default state is just to be moving through the universe based on pure physics, and we happen to have life and consciousness, which you can dive down a really deep Hegelian rabbit hole of how consciousness forms out of itself, because it should be like, how do you start reflecting on itself? Like, that's sort of the foundation there of that loop. But optimistic nihilism, this is where the institutions of, say, classical music, institutions of even just the standard practice of 12 notes of the octave. I mean, 12 notes, it makes a lot of sense mathematically. So I think a lot of people I think there's going to be a lot of convergence towards the 12 note system. But at the same time, it's not like real. Like, those things aren't actually real. They don't actually carry with them meaning that can be separated from the observer, So that's the intrinsic meaninglessness part. And of course, we all know scientifically we're all going to die, that the sun's going to burn out and all of that. So in the end, and here I'm getting to the riskiest point that I wanted to make in this video. It's something that's been extremely important to me, but I can also see where somebody it would take them to a dark place. So really only use this thought if it's also seemingly helpful for you. But basically, in the grand scheme of things, there's no difference really if I were to die right now or in 50, 60 years, right? The only difference being what opportunities I can have between now and then. And so that's kind of the thing. Like, if there's intrinsic meaninglessness, then it shouldn't matter those extra 50 years or not. But the optimistic nihilistic view is to be like, well, here's an opportunity. I'm conscious. I have certain things. I have limbs and a brain. What can I do with that? And most importantly, what can I do with that so that I'm not only getting something, but I'm making the environment that other people live in a better place for them as well, right? And that's great, I feel like if that's not your goal, then, maybe you in your current form, that not being your goal, probably not even beneficial to society, really, You'd hope that everybody has the attitude that they're looking out for themselves and they're trying to make what works for themselves work in a way that helps the environment around them as well. So this is kind of where it comes to the environment and why in my pursuit of climbing K2, the metaphor with me being specifically, this very high level mastery of the cello, also pushing new territory with cello, and also trying to build something on social media, which is a hard game in and of itself as well. So that's kind of my K2, right? Why am I here? Why is this like the best way that I can see going about this goal? So this is why I thought this was a good video to make. And of course, because it is cold, hopefully I will be keeping it short and you guys won't feel like your time is wasted. I really do feel like there's something concrete that I want to share. I'm not just rambling. So far we've touched upon kind of 2 points. Optimistic nihilism as a sort of, foundational proxy for what religion can fill the human spirit with. And then also that I'm talking about a journey to, be someone who climbs K2. So my response with the optimistic nihilism to that was basically to say, yeah, so like, I know it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you climb the mountain. It doesn't matter if you don't. There is no intrinsic meaning, right? And what's nice about that is that it kind of frees you up. When you really think that you have to win the Oscar or get 1 million subscribers because there's going to be some metamorphosis at that point where you stop being a person who's anxious and worried about yourself and you start becoming supernatural. Sounds ridiculous, right? This is, I think, how we feel, though, and how we're led to feel. And it is fundamentally not true. In fact, I think there's an epidemic among the wealthy of depression. At least the vibes that I get as somebody who struggled with it myself, and all the interactions I do get to have with rich people when I play their events. You have to spend a lot of money. And why? Right? Well, I think the answers are pretty simple. If you were to ask me my political philosophy, I would say, in a nutshell, it's something like libertarian socialist. People should be free to pursue the best quality of life for themselves. Things should be based on systems dynamic principles, and you should be able to own the true value of your labor and the means of production for, what you're building and all of that. So with that in mind, that sounds great, but that's not what we have at all. The only way you can have that is if you can provide for it for yourself somehow. And the unfortunate thing about systems is that they're by their nature, they're bigger than you. You can't just escape the system. And this is why people can end up being just as enslaved to their position even if their position pays very well. There's stories you can read of people who are making $250,000, but in San Francisco, and with all the social pressures to dress a certain way and be at certain events and send your kids to private school or whatever, you end up living paycheck to paycheck, but just with a more lavish life. And so the thing that the socialist analysis did for me is to help me get a bigger lens on where we are. Because I've always had that itch. Oh, I don't fully belong. I kind of want to just live off the grid. I kind of want to just travel. And that used to be something that was ill-defined in its source. Just like a feeling, right? And as I was able to get on top of a lot of mental health stuff, I would say most importantly, just finally identifying that I had ADHD going on, that would have probably let me live in society if society were a place that I wanted to be a part of, independent of mental health. But it's not. not in its current form. And I do think that there's a situation where, people are guaranteed housing, people are guaranteed sort of the basics to live, and there are systems in place still so that people contribute to kind of keeping society running, but cities are laid out better, and you can actually walk and live in your environment as opposed to these car-centric hells that make cities unusable, which is very, very frustrating when you want cities to be these places where people who are very smart and creative and interested in things push the boundaries of those things forward. And we're very far from that. Why do I think I could live in that circumstance and not this one? Well, it's very simple. In that circumstance, I would have a place to work and I would be afforded the time to work on things that are of interest to me. That is not really possible unless you're like a trust fund kid. Now, we're finally getting back around to the living in the woods thing. This is sort of my closest approximation as I can possibly get to being afforded all of that, Like, it's almost like a sneak peek at what a socialist future might look like, where if things are distributed more or less equitably based on what's available and what's sustainable, a lot of people will have less, like people with McMansions. Most vast majority of people, it'll be like the same or better, right? So it's not like, I'm not trying to make like a fear thing about it, but but it's like, you'll also still have to do work, just like I have to do work. And I'm gonna be able to sum up in a moment. This is my final addition to this mosaic to paint a picture of kind of what I wanted to get at, which hopefully I will be able to identify soon. I'm also starting to get really cold, so I think at the top of this hill I'm going to turn around, and so then at the very least, video is only going to be 25 minutes long. But anyways, so what I was talking about is we are man, I really didn't want to cut this video. All right, you guys are getting it. All right, we're gonna have to peel back a little bit. Optimistic nihilism out in the woods. And I'm grateful because I think for me, I basically just see the positives. I just see the control over my own time, the feeling of connection to my everyday and the value of my labor, the mental space and sort of like association, close association to other living things. Fresh mountain air as opposed to city air. I don't mean to be snobbish about it. I'm just saying you will notice a difference if you're going between the two. And one feels a lot nicer to be in. Well, at the same time, I think that most people don't want to have to deal with being out in the cold. Don't want to have to deal with sourcing their own electricity, sourcing their own sewage, sourcing their own water. So being able to deal with things like last week when the canopy collapsed under too much snow, the studio canopy. So in the morning, in the rain, got to go out and clean everything up. And then I'm without it for a few days and have to figure that out, how to be as maximally productive as possible. People don't want to deal with that. And I understand that. And I think that because there is, I said I'd turn around here. Okay. Because there is that clear trade-off, I don't feel like I'm completely like avoiding society's issues. I mean, I just said that more like traditionally like successful people with like I don't have much money. It's just, I'm providing a lot for myself, right? And I'm not right up against zero. So those are like the two, but for people who really truly have like a massive amount of assets going on, I was still talking about how they can feel the same effects of disconnection that anybody else is going to feel when we're divorced from the product of our labor, we're divorced from community building around us, city layouts don't foster third spaces, and, just the random meeting of people, especially of different income levels, like cities of the past. And yeah, I still feel really connected to all that. But I'm also really glad to have been able to find a space where I truly can just work on what I know I need to work on for the K2 climb, the proverbial K2 climb. To not burn myself out, but to stay very healthy-minded. I'm extremely healthy. If anything, I feel guilty I don't work more because I actually do sleep enough and do yoga and hike and spend enough time with my wife, but that I can sustain. And if you kind of think about the attitude that you'd need to have if you're going to persist and try to do something that is interesting, innovative, I think most importantly, to not be pretentious about it, something that really is a mountain to climb if you want that thing to be like your identity and your profession, right? And I'm sure a lot of you feel that way about something. Maybe my thought earlier, I kind of flirted around the naughty word that I don't want to say on YouTube, but maybe you saw through what I mean, right? If you're still going, you still have those years left, make that an active decision, not a passive one. You're not just trying not to die. You're seizing the day. You're saying, wow, like when I'm dead, I can do nothing intentionally. But right now, I have some amount of free will. Might not be complete free will, but I think it's more than zero. So let's sum up. What have I been trying to say? I've been trying to say that for me, the focus on this careerdom at this point really does not have to do anything with believing that it'll solve my problems or will gift me all the validation or whatever. It's just what I've decided that I'm doing with my life, right? If I'm up and whatever's going on, I'm gonna be practicing cello. I'm gonna be writing songs. I'm going to be interested in learning about what the frick's going on around me, talking with people. I'm going to be interested in interfacing with whatever reality is happening, interfacing as somebody who is looking after myself, practicing cello, learning, making music, and doing my best to have those things be something that helps others. Now, I know there's a lot of selfishness in there still. I'd like to think it's okay working it out to be something that's still a net positive for the world, to make good music and share good ideas and generally not pollute much and stuff like that. You can criticize me though, if you want. That's okay. Just be nice about it and constructive, and I'll take it seriously. So what I've really just been trying to get across, I guess, is how my lifestyle interacts with the idea of optimistic nihilism, kind of how the idea of optimistic nihilism can wrap around and be the right sort of approach for tackling the attitude you need to have the perseverance to do something like, just keep getting more and more high level with playing an instrument or something that doesn't otherwise have clear benchmarks. You can have that attitude that, I could just be dead. But since I'm not, I'm working on this, and I'm trying to negotiate with my environment to have that be something that is accessible and doable. I think that more people can access it. And I'm not going to be too pushy or preachy here, because if there's one thing that I've learned throughout my life, it's that no matter how common your your opinion is or whatever, how many people you'll find who agree. There's always going to be people who are like just completely different. And if you really believe in diversity and unity of people and stuff like that, that has to be just as copacetic. She used Jesse Pinkman's girlfriend's word from Breaking Bad season 2. Just as copacetic, just as chill. Like, it's fine. We just have to learn how to all live together. But yeah, if you don't feel like you're seizing the day as much as you could, a lot of it is environmental, systemic, and some of it I think you can seize on. And it doesn't have to be something that's super intense. I mean, it is kind of intense, but it doesn't have to be something that burns you out or really causes you to, I don't know, get overwhelmed. I don't know. I feel a lot of different things. I know other people feel a lot of different things. I really don't know what's going on in your head, but I wanted to share the ideas of optimistic nihilism, how I'm approaching my long-term, why nature's groovy, but not the sole answer, and maybe also the basics of kind of the political, economic system thinking that I have been doing a lot of the last few years. COVID kickstarted a lot for people. Anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed the beautiful scenery. I'm not quite home yet, but I don't want to keep you guys unnecessarily. I mean, I guess we could. It's okay. I think you should go. I think you should be able to continue with your day. But if you want to continue interacting with this video, you could leave a comment, what you thought, how it impacts you. Feel free to just, I want you to be listening to what I'm saying and thinking about yourself and how it applies to yourself. That's how I hope that you're going to listen to this, because that's the only reason I'm talking about myself, because that's like the thing that I've been working on that I can share. But, I'm sharing it hoping that you will relate to it. I hope that didn't need to be said, but I just try to take care. Okay, ending the video, walking home. Love you guys. See you next video. Bye-bye.